So we have a review day today on circles, and I told you yesterday that if you started with a circle right here, and we had a radius of 1, and we said this distance was x, and this distance was y, then we could make a little triangle. And then that helped us develop the formula for the circle. Would you try to remember what the formula for the circle is based on this? It has to do with Pythagorean theorem. So what's the general form for a circle that's based at the center and has a radius of 1? Yes, sir. Got an answer or a question?
Well, I have a question.
Okay. You're writing the equations.
If the radius is 6,
Yep.
it's like 36 equals, or just 6?
If the radius had been 6, I would say, pausing. All right. So we're back, and hopefully somebody has got this formula for me. Raise your hand if you've got it nailed down. Yes, ma'am. Yep, and 1 or 1 squared would be the same. It's kind of be nice to keep the pattern going, but 1 squared is 1, so that would have been fine. All right, that was how we derived the formula for the circle, and then I suggested that if you wanted to move it to the right, you could just like throw something in with the x, and you wanted to move the y up or down, just throw something in with the y. And then if I want to change the radius, I just change the number 1 to something else. Would you please use that form and tell me what would the equation be for a circle that gets moved to the right 4 and up 6? Right 4, up 6. And it still has a radius of 1. This time I'd like you to compare it with the person next to you. In this case, since there's a lack of people in the row here, you two are going to compare, right, forward and backwards. And then we're going to go diagonal, diagonal, diagonal. Okay? And in this row, you are going to compare with him. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it works well to go this way. And then over here, Mr. Alex, you're just going to turn to the kid behind you, and he'll have to do double duty. All right, see if you guys get the same equation as each other for this right 4 and up 6 circle. All right. So this one, right 4, minus 4. Up 6, that'd be y plus 6. Very good. Some of you are saying, no, that's really tempting to do, but up 6 doesn't mean plus 6. It means minus 6 because it's inside, and things on the inside are the opposite of what you'd expect. Okay, and then that last one, I did say the radius would stay the same, and therefore it's 1 squared. If I had said the radius had changed to like 4, I'd just put a 4 right there, and it'd be 4 squared. Okay, so along those lines, let's say I knew the center of a circle is at 2, -4, and I know its radius is 5. Would you write me the equation for that one? Pausing. Okay, so here we go. You should have said x, y, and then you should have said plus between them. And then you should have said the radius is 5, but hopefully you didn't say 5, you say 5 squared. Or you could have said 25, either one's fine. Okay, then you should have said center being 2, x is 2. Should I use a plus 2 or a minus 2? If you think about it, you'd go right 2 to get there, right? From the origin, you'd go right 2, so therefore that's like right 2, which is like a minus 2. And then this is like down 4 to get there. And down 4, you'd say plus 4 because it's the opposite of what you would think. Raise your hand if you had it perfect. Awesome. That's another one of those skills that I consider to be a ACT/top 20/ could have been on the PSAT. You get that they draw from a big set of skills, right? There's not just 20 things you need to know for the ACT or whatever. There's 200. Yes. Usually for something like this, it takes a couple months. For ACTs, usually you get them in about 2 weeks. But for this, I would say more like a couple months. Yes. Well, I wouldn't say easier. There's more questions, and therefore you'll understand more of the questions. But when you say easier, it's sort of, they both have hard questions on them. It's very hard to get a 36 on both of them. So I guess the only thing I'd say, I think the ACT is longer because it takes you 4 hours to take the ACT. Your typical kid takes the ACT either sophomore or junior year. Okay, well, it depends on the kid. I think you can schedule it anytime you want to after your sophomore year, or starting your sophomore year. So you can take the PSAT, or sorry, the SAT as a, or ACT as a sophomore, or a junior, or a senior, or all three. I don't think you should take it too much, but it's not, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say taking it twice wouldn't hurt, because a lot of times people do better. In my family's case, my one daughter did quite a bit better on her second try, but she did do a lot of studying in between. So, all right. So we are, I guess I'm still recording. It doesn't matter much. It's going to be a really short lesson, and there's some tips on the PSAT for you. The only other thing is, if I actually draw a circle for you and I say, oh, by the way, it's like, let's say here, I'm going to make it so it's like touching like that. And then I'm going to say that this point right here, that's straight underneath at the bottom of the circle, that point there is at -4, -8. That tells you a bunch of stuff about the circle that you'd need to know. Write the equation for that circle. I must have told you all the info that you'd need. This has got to be, imagine that it's perfectly straight underneath that point. And then it goes over to there. There's not too many big stretchy leaps here. You can figure out what you need to know to write the equation and then compare it with the kid next to you. Pausing. All right, so here we go. You should have figured out from what I gave you, this was not a big stretch, that point right there, it must be at -4, -4. You get what I'm saying? And if that point right there is the center of the circle and it's at -4, -4, then how wide is this circle? What's the radius of this circle? 4. You get how I told you the radius and the center by giving you this one point right here? Okay, so then you'd go x, y, squared equals, and a plus in between. And then I'm going to go, should it be a +4 or a -4? I'm moving left, +4. And I'm moving down, seems like you should do -4, so you do +4. And the last thing is the radius of this circle is 4, so I say 4 squared, or you could have said 16. Did anybody put that all together and get it right? About half of you. All right. Okay, so that's a little review of circles. Let me just tell you where we're headed next. First a question, yes? Okay, if I had a -4 in there, just think about this. That would make me move from the origin, which is right. Okay, the radius, you really want the distance to be negative? That's the problem with that. All right, so, and besides, you're going to square it anyway, so it's going to come out +16, but I would not put a negative in there. It would look like you think the distance is negative, and that's not normal. Okay, so now, what are we doing with this knowledge? You're going to be making a picture. I gave you an idea the other day of like a face. Okay, so let me give you something else that could be like, maybe it's more like a race car. Okay, so you're going to be making a picture with all this knowledge. Do you get that that's a square root? Okay, and then let's say that I wanted to make a wheel. What's that going to be? A circle. Okay, now can you just put in the equation of a circle normally? Not on a graphing calculator, you can't. You got to solve them for y, which is a little bit of a pain. And then you do, remember how it's the top half of the circle is one of the equations? And then the other equation is that exact thing except flipped. So it's a negative in front of it. And it makes the other half of the equation. But anyway, and then let's say in here you could connect it with a little stretched parabola. You get how that's like a parabola from here to here? I'll make it a different color. Maybe that'll help. That's like a little parabola. How do you stop them from going forever? We do what's called a domain. And you remember how the domain, we can control the domain. We can say, I want it to start, let's say this is at 0, 0 of my graph. I want my parabola to start at 0, 0. Sorry, the domain's just the x of it, right? So I want it to start at 0, and I want it to end at, let's say this is at 4. You just restrict its domain to only between 0 and 4. And I'm just showing you the beginning of a race car. Of course, maybe you want to have another square root like this for the roof of the car, like the, where the driver rides in there. You get really creative. You could put a driver in there, like with a person, maybe another eyeballs, another circle, and now we give them some crazy hair with the square root symbols or something. So anyway, all kinds of possibilities. You're going to draw me, use some creative abilities. That's coming up. It's not next, but it's coming. I'm just trying to show you why the circle was needed. It's really handy for the drawing part. Okay, so that's all I have for you for today. I want you to do for your homework the rest of last night's worksheet, the circles worksheet, where I only assigned you the evens before, the even letters or even numbers. Now I want you to do all the other problems on there, except you can skip the very last 4 problems that you would have encountered to just try to make your life a little bit better, have a nice short assignment for this long weekend. So finish last night's, except skip 4 problems at the end. Okay, any other last questions? Okay, that's all I got for you for today.